through the media, I have heard people suggest that people in America ought to have a cultural dialogue that is concerned with the issue of race relations in America. It's not productive to have such a dialogue. The reason for this is that the more people talk about race relations in America, the more racial tension they create. Therefore, it makes sense for people to not talk about the issue of race relations in America, because the less people talk about race relations, the less racial tension is generated. And so, hence, people just should not talk about race relations in America so that they don't generate racial tension. And so what I propose is to even go, to help further that agenda, the agenda that I suggested, the agenda which is that people should not discuss race relations in America. So what I suggest as far as like specific specific things are that there shouldn't be affirmative action when people are filling out a job application. They shouldn't be asked their race or their ethnicity. And when people fill out school applications, they shouldn't be asked their race or ethnicity. And when people do standardized tests, they shouldn't be asked their race or ethnicity. And when people fill out census information, they shouldn't be asked their race or ethnicity. And so the issue of race just should be not brought up to the extent that it is brought up, and part of reducing the amount that it is spoken of would involve just not including the topic of race on things like applications. However, if we are in a situation where they continue to ask people's race on applications, that doesn't necessarily mean that people would be bound to discussing race on a cultural level and making a big issue of it on a cultural level. If it's still going to be asked on things like applications and other things, then people can still consciously choose to avoid discussing things such as race relations. So my basic points are that people shouldn't talk about race relations in America, and the issue of race should just be not talked about, and it shouldn't be mentioned on things like applications and stuff like that, and they shouldn't have things like affirmative action and stuff like that. And so, yeah, those are some basic thoughts on it, and yeah, that's it.